Which brings us to our second element, the daily review. Now, this is the first review in a whole series of different reviews. We have a daily review, a weekly, a monthly, a quarterly, and a yearly review. So there are different layers at which we sort of process parts of our system. Now, the daily review is linked to the following elements. First of all, we have the action tracker in there. We empty our action inbox every day in the daily review, and we also have the action list that we want to execute on. Then we also have the habit tracker in there. Every day we want to track our habits, and we do that during our daily review. We want to empty our knowledge inboxes. We have our affirmations, which are sort of like daily reminders to ourselves that we might have to sort of get in touch with the deeper aspects of our core insights, like the deeper aspects of who we are. And then we have a whole bunch of reflection questions in there because reflection leads to insight, and daily review is going to be very low-level reflection, but it's still good to ask yourself a question like, what am I grateful for today? Or what went well? Or maybe what could I have improved on? So those are also going to be inside the daily review. And later on, the daily review itself is also going to be embedded inside of the weekly review, and we'll explore that a few little subchapters down the line. Inside this flowchart system over here, you can see the daily review is also on this very low level of the hierarchy. And that's what I was sort of saying earlier. We have these different levels of reviews, and those are feeding into each other. So the daily review is feeding into the weekly review, into the monthly. So we have these different cycles, and the daily review is sort of the lowest level part, the very short-term feedback loop of this system. Okay, so what then is the key goal of the daily review? There's this beautiful quote by Abraham Lincoln where he said, "If I have 6 hours to chop a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe." So often we get lost in simply doing things. We go because we always want to be more productive. We want to get more out of our time. But instead of necessarily becoming more productive, we become more busy. And this is sort of the balance between being effective and being efficient. Being efficient is doing a certain thing very efficiently, right? For example, I could tell you to grab a bucket of water, move it to the other side of the room, then take that same bucket of water and bring it back. And then I could tell you, try to do that as efficiently as possible. See how often you can bring that bucket back and forth within an hour. And at the end of the hour, you come up to me, you're like, I made a super efficient system. I brought this bucket back and forth 1,000 times. Now, that might be very efficient, but it's not very effective because we're not really doing anything of value. So effectiveness is more about doing the right thing. Instead of bringing the bucket back and forth, maybe you just bring it to the place where the fire is, and you just bring one bucket, and it took you 2 minutes, and it was more effective than running back and forth 1,000 times. That is sort of where effectiveness comes in. That's where sharpening the axe comes in. So instead of just chopping a tree, we take a few hours to sharpen the axe. Now, we're not going to take a few hours to start our day with clarity and intent. We're going to take a few minutes. So every morning we start up with a few minutes. We have a little startup ritual during our daily review. And then at the end of the day, we have a little shutdown ritual. Very important to note here, principle number 7, design for modularity. So we can take from these routines what we want, take what is useful, and we can discard the rest, right? So it's a blueprint of how you could do a daily review, but you don't have to do everything. Just take what is useful and discard the rest. So that is the key goal of the daily review. Start and end our days with clarity and intent, and maybe through doing that, save ourselves an hour or 2 hours of work or frustration. Just make sure that we're a little more aligned with what we're actually trying to do in life. So let's actually build this daily review inside of Notion. The first thing we're doing, once again, is we're going to navigate towards this database collection zone. And then over here, I'm going to create a section for the review databases. And once again, we're going to add a full page database. So this is going to be the daily review database. We're going to give it the sun icon. So the daily review is always denoted by this little sun icon. And we're going to give it a cover. Let's see. Notion of Life covers, review covers, daily review covers. And we're going to have the database over here. and boom, we're going to open this one up. Once again, we're going to add a few properties. So I'll add some entries here just to make it look a little better. The first property that we have is the name of the day. So on which day are we doing this daily review? So I'm just going to call this one day, right? And for example, this could be December 24th, December 23rd. I always just take the first 3 letters of the month and the date. Could also write it out all the way. Just takes an unnecessary amount of time. And also, this property is sort of redundant, and I will show you in a little bit why it is redundant. But unfortunately, it is not possible to delete a name property. So this is the only property that every database will always have. This one, as you can see, we cannot delete it. Then the next property that we want to add is a date property. And we actually want to use this one because we can format it as actual dates, right? It opens up a little calendar over here, whereas if we do this, it's just a simple name property. And then we're going to call this one the review date. And then we want to add a few properties in which we can track some information. So we're going to add a number property here, and we're going to call this statistic. I'm completely butchering that. Statistic 1. This is for the people that like to track quantitative information, because during the daily review, we do a lot of tracking, we do a lot of processing, and some of that is going to be qualitative, like reflections, right? These are things that are not measurable, but that we still want to track and engage with. Some of them can be quantitative, which are things that are measurable, like, for example, statistics, right? Maybe you're tracking your weight, or maybe you're tracking your sleeping score, right? So we could just duplicate a property like this. Maybe we want to have like a sleeping score, right? So if you're the type of person that wants to track statistics, then you can do it over here. I don't really track statistics. I find that it requires quite some effort. And also, there's some interesting research into the psychology of tracking statistics. It can make us very obsessive about them, and it can actually be quite negative for our mental health. And I used to track a lot of statistics, but I did also notice that very often it would sort of turn into chasing this number. Now, it doesn't mean it's wrong. I still think there's a time and place to track things. Like I track things in my little gym booklet. But if you want to track like all these statistics, I think it's good to think about whether it's actually adding value to your life, yes or no. I'm going to reposition this one slightly because it's supposed to be like that. Cool. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to create a daily rating. So actually over here, I'm going to say select day rating, and we're going to give ourselves the possibility to rate our day by using stars. So I'm going to have 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, and 5 star. And then I'm actually going to color code them. I'm going to say 1 star is red, 2 stars is brown, 3 stars is orange, 4 stars is yellow, and 5 stars is green. So that way we can give a rating to the separate days. So just like that, we've created a simple daily review database. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so every day I'm just going to fill in statistics, and that might not even happen, and I'm going to do a rating score, and that's it. No, that's not it, because this is where we get into the magical world of templates. Okay, so quickly going to call this one the master table. Once again, I'm going to give it the sun emoji. And now we're actually going to create our first database template, because the daily review doesn't necessarily happen in the database view, but it actually happens in the template. So over here, I'm going to say create a template for the daily review. So we're going to open that one up, say Command Enter to blow up this page. And on the top here, you can see that we're editing a template in the daily review. This is a very important thing to note, because whenever we make changes in a template, every future time we're going to generate that template, the changes are going to be in there. So we're going to open that one up. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to style this page a little bit. So over here, you can actually customize the layout of a page. So what I want to do is I don't want to see all of these properties at the top of the template. It's just a bunch of clutter that we don't necessarily need. So I will move this to this panel on the right. And I'm actually going to pin a few properties in the top here. So I'm going to go over here. Now, here it says that we can pin things. And what I want to pin is the review date. And if we're tracking them, the statistics. I'm personally not tracking them, but if we're tracking them, we can put the statistics over here. I'm going to say apply to all pages. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to remove this comment section. Like Notion allows us to place comments on all of the different pages, which is great for when we're collaborating with people or for when we're working on a knowledge document, for example. But for the daily review, it's just a bunch of clutter that we don't need. So over here, I'm just going to say page discussions off. Apply to all pages. And now this already looks a whole bunch cleaner. Now, of course, we're going to add the sun icon. And we are going to add the daily review cover. We're going to do the regular one instead of the database one. It's a little bit thicker, which actually works better for template views. And as that one is loading in, we're just going to customize some of these properties over here. Because what we want to do when we create a new daily review is that the review date is automatically set to today. So we don't have to manually add that every single time. So over here, it already shows in the shortcuts. I'm simply going to say date when duplicated. Don't necessarily need the time. I just want to have the date when duplicated. So just press that one over here. Boom. And now whenever we would generate this template, it's automatically going to set this date to today. Now we're going to set it to full width. Now we can actually start building this daily review template. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call it daily review template. The reason we're doing this is because when you're inside of this database, over here, you can see the name of each template. So if I would have called this Donkadonk, it would also be called Donkadonk here. And we don't want it to be called Donkadonk because we want to call it daily review template because that is what it is. So we're going to put that to daily review template. Okay, so let's go back into our template and actually start building the structure. Now, initially, we're just going to use some text block. Later on, all of these parts of the daily review will be replaced by custom database views. But for now, we're just going to put some text blocks to give it some structure. First thing we're going to do is going to be the startup routine. This is the routine that we do at the beginning of our day. Then the first thing I'm going to add is the startup questions, which are the reflection questions that we fill in at the beginning of any day. And I'm actually going to put this in a toggle menu, which allows us to put things under here. But then once we got it under here, we can simply collapse that menu over here. I'm just going to put in these questions. What energy state am I feeling today? What would make today awesome? And maybe some daily morning journaling, if that is something that we would like. And I'm going to give some writing space for each of these. And then we're going to collapse that little menu. Then the next thing that we want to show is all of the action items that are planned for today. And if you paid attention, during our last element, we actually created a view that shows us all of the action items that are due for today. So I'm simply going to grab a linked view of the database. I'm going to say this action tracker that we created earlier, and I just want to see my daily actions. I'm just going to hide this one, and boom. Just like that, we have a little overview of all of the action items that we want to do today. The next thing we're going to add is our startup habits. And these are basically actions that we repeat. So actions over here are all unique. Habits are things that we repeat on a consistent basis. So for example, a habit could be filling in my daily review, right? Or sitting down to meditate. Now, later on, we're going to make a custom database for this with all of the best practices of habit setting. But for now, we're just going to put the startup habits over here. And then the last thing we'll have is actually our affirmations, which are sort of reminders that we set for ourselves based on our core insights. So they're very deep things that we want to affirm in ourselves. So for example, I am confident in my abilities and I will create value for other people. That could just be an affirmation, something I want to remind myself of every single day. So every morning we could just read through those affirmations. And once again, designed for modularity, feel free to delete any of these parts. This daily review template is sort of the perfect blueprint, right? It has everything in it that you might need for a good daily review, but you can modify, you can add, you can delete anything that you want. Okay, gonna make this one purple. That is our startup routine. This is what we would fill in at the beginning of our day, our working day, or the day when we wake up. I usually do it before work. We open up the daily review template and fill in our startup routine. Then the second part of the day, we're going to have our shutdown routine. So this is what we do at the end of the day, right? When we finish working, or maybe before we go to sleep, whatever works for you. Find a pace, find a setting that works for you, and we're going to fill in our shutdown routine. Now, the first part of our shutdown routine is going to be emptying our inboxes. Like we mentioned earlier, with our action tracker, we are capturing things throughout the day. And the same goes for our knowledge database, which is the one we're covering after this. So all the action items and all the knowledge pieces that we capture throughout the day, we don't clarify them in the moment because we don't want to be taken out of the flow. So during the day, we're storing all these things in an inbox. And then at the end of the day, we're going to empty this inbox. So over here, we want to have an inbox with all of our action items, and we want to have an inbox with all of our knowledge pieces. Now, let's create the action item inbox first. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our database collection zone. We're going to open up our action tracker, and we're going to create a new view. And this one we're going to call action inbox. I'm going to give them the fire emoji, and we're going to say, okay, done. I'm going to drag this one over here. Action date. We're going to hide the status, and we're going to hide the last edited time. Inside a Notion of Life, action items are always related to a project. Now, I stole this idea from Tiago Forte's PARA, which is basically projects, areas, resources, and another letter that I forgot what it stands for. But the basic idea is that an action item is always related to a project. And a project is sort of a unit of work, a small scope, a goal with a practical engine behind it to get to that goal. And projects in our head make a lot of sense. Like psychologically, it's easier for us to think in a project. Like I'm renovating the house, or I'm doing my thesis project, or I am writing a book, right? These are things that in our mind make a lot of sense. Alternatively, we could also take an action item and classify it by a knowledge tag, for example. We could say, okay, this action item is related to philosophy or creativity. But those things just make a lot less sense in our heads. They're not really logically connected to each other. So a project is actually a really good way to classify our action items. So every single action item inside our system is ultimately going to be connected to a project. But we have not yet created the project tracker database. So for now, we're just going to say select tag, and we're just going to call this project. And we're going to have the action inbox like this. What we want to do right now is we want to create a filter that says any action item that is not yet related to a project, I want to see that in the inbox. So over here, I'm going to say filter project is empty. So any action item that is not yet related to a project will be shown in here. The moment I relate it to the project, so writing the Notion of Life book, for example, and let's add one more project, renovating the house. The moment I assign it to a project, it disappears from our inbox. And that is what we want to do. Like every action needs to be connected to a project. So if it's not connected, then it's shown in the inbox. The moment we connect it, then it is automatically filtered away. Because if we go back to the action tracker a moment ago, capture, clarify, process. This is the processing part. We've now taken this action item and we link it to the proper project. Okay. This is now our action inbox, and we want to take this one and put it into the daily review. easy way to navigate through Notion, Command P, you open up the search mode, and then in chronological order, it shows you the pages that you visited. So we're going to go back to this daily review template. We're going to go all the way down, and the first inbox we want to empty is a linked view of this action tracker inbox, and boom, just like that. At the end of the day, we look at all the items that we've collected as the day progressed, and then we just over here can clarify them. It's like, okay, this actually doesn't make a lot of sense. Write the book chapter in green. Not the best example, but over here we can clarify our action, and then we can relate it to a project, and the inbox is empty. We're going to be doing the same for our knowledge inbox. For now, I'm just going to put that over here. And then the last thing that we want to empty is our scratchpad. And the scratchpad is basically a place where we can jot down things really quick that don't really deserve to be a full knowledge piece or that aren't fully fleshed out yet. It's just an easy way to capture some information. So the way we do that is very simple. We create a toggle. We call it scratchpad. Just going to make that one bold. And we're going to make it gray. And sometimes Notion doesn't work with this. Sometimes it glitches a little bit, because basically what we want here to happen is when we drag it, we want the menu to pop up. We could also color it over here, but the problem when we color it over here is that all the text inside the toggle is also going to be colored. And I actually don't want the text inside to be colored. I just want this scratchpad piece of text to be colored. So I'm just going to remove this default, drag again, drag over here. And we're just going to have, yeah, there we go. Sometimes it just does that. Very annoying. Boom. I'm going to call this gray text. This is now our scratchpad. And then in here, I'm actually going to add another one, which is called scratchpad history. I'm just going to collab that one. Hey there. Just a brief intermission to let you know that you can get free access to the masterclass worksheet by dropping your email address in the link down below. And inside of this worksheet, you will find a step-by-step outline to track your progress as you're going throughout this masterclass. You will also find the complete slide deck that we are using in this video. You will find all of the formulas ready to copy and paste, meaning you don't have to write them out all yourself, but you can just plug them into your system and start using them straight away. And this one is a really good one. You will find the 2 original reflection databases, and this will literally save you hours of setup time. You can just plug them into your system and start using them straight away. And then just as a tiny little cherry on top, you will also get all of the database and template covers that we are using in this masterclass. So if you want to grab all this stuff for free right now, then drop your email address down below and I'll send it to you straight away. I'd collect this one. Okay. This scratchpad, during the knowledge part of this video, we're going to explore it a bit further. For now, I'm just going to grab it. I'm going to say Command C. And I'm actually going to add it to our navbar for all of our different zones. Because now in each zone, we always have the scratchpad available. So whenever we want to jot down a few notes, we can just jot them down over here. And maybe some more notes over here, right? So this is very easy to just capture some quick ideas that don't really deserve a full-fledged entry in any of the databases. And then during our daily review at the end, we have empty our inboxes, and we can sort of look at the notes that we jotted down. If we want to save them for a bit, but they don't deserve a full knowledge piece, we can drag them into the history. And if we want to turn them into a knowledge piece, then later on, we're also going to have our knowledge inbox in here, and we can simply drag them, just like we could do in the action item. We can simply drag them into that specific database. Okay, that is going to be our inbox emptying. I'm just going to put this one over here. Going to make a little divider line. And then the next part of our shutdown routine is our actions and habits review. What we want to do here is first we want to have a quick overview of what were the daily actions that I set out to do today and which ones did I actually complete. Then afterwards, we're going to look at our calendar, and we're going to use Notion calendar for this, which is also something we're going to explore later. And we're actually going to make sure that we have a plan for the day ahead, right? So we're always planning a day ahead with all the actions that we're scheduling. And then the last thing that we do is we sort of want to track all of our habits. So just like that we did with the startup routine, certain habits we might do in the morning, but certain habits we might want to do later in the day. So then during our shutdown routine, we can also check off these habits that we completed during the day. So the first thing that we want to do is have a action view that shows all of the actions that we completed today. So I'm going to go back into the database collection zone. We're actually going to duplicate the daily actions. We're going to call this one action review. And now instead of saying, don't show me the actions that were unchecked today, I actually just want to see all of the actions for today. And basically what this means is that as the day progresses, actually, let me show you this from inside the execution zone. We're like executing on these things. Our action list over here disappears. But then the moment we open it, right here with this linked view, I'm going to say action review. Boom. I can now see all of the actions that I did today. I can also see if I did not do an action today. And the power here is we can sort of have a quick reflection, just like a few seconds to see, hey, did I do the things I wanted to do? If not, maybe we can ask ourselves the question, why did I not do that particular thing? And also reminds us to actually schedule that thing for the day ahead, because that's the next thing that we would do. We would actually schedule actions in the calendar. And then lastly, we're going to do some shutdown habits, right? So these are any other habits, maybe something in the evening, workout in the gym. Maybe that's another habit that we want to track. Okay, once again, these are all going to be databases. These are all going to be much more user-friendly. But for now, we're just sort of setting out the structure of this daily review. Just going to close up that toggle. And then the last thing that we do at the end of our day is we actually have our daily reflections for the shutdown. And this is a very similar structure to the top one. So we can have our shutdown, not shut up questions. I mean, that would also be pretty funny, shut up questions. We're going to have our shut down questions over here. Potentially, we can also have our affirmations here once again. And we're actually going to measure our shutdown statistics. Now, here we're going to do a little Notion Fuguzi Vigezi. Basically, what I want to do is I want to fill in this information about this page. But because I want it to be structured in the flow of this template, I'm going to create a linked view of the daily review database, and I want to show this particular day in this template. Okay, so what do I mean by that? We're going to go and open our daily review database. And then over here, we're actually going to create a new view, and this is going to be the daily tracking. Inside here, I want to track my statistics and I want to track my rating. So I'm going to hide this one over here. And then I'm going to create a filter that says only show me the daily review that has the date for today. Boom. So it's only going to show me a daily review with the date for today. Currently, this daily review is empty. But the moment I would generate a new page using our template, it is automatically going to assign the date, right? We put this in the template earlier. It's automatically going to assign the date. And because this one has the filter, let me actually show that property, to show the one with the review date for today, it's actually going to show up in here. So in this particular view, we will only see the daily review that is happening today. Now, why is this important? Because we want to add this view to our template. I'm going to go down here and actually going to say linked view of database. daily review, daily tracking. And then as we are doing our review, in the bottom here, part of this process, we can just fill in the statistic. This is 50. This is 75. And I give it a 3-star rating. Boom. Just like that. And if we were now to go back into our daily review, you can see it has been added to this particular entry. Last thing we want to do before I show you that, almost forgot about this, is we actually want to create a button to add to the execution zone to easily generate this specific template. The first thing we need to do is go over here and say, this daily review template, I want to turn that into the default. And that basically makes it so, I'm going to do that for all of you. That basically makes it so that whenever we create a page in this database, boom, it automatically generates a template, because that's the only sort of page we're going to add in here, so it makes sense to make that the default. So that's the first thing that we do. And then the second thing that we do is we're going to create an empty view, but we're going to use the gallery view. Now, a gallery view gives us an overview of the database in a gallery format, right? Here we have all these little entries and they look like a beautiful gallery. We could add an image to this, we could style it in a beautiful way. But actually what I want to do for this particular view is I want to go in here. I want to go to layout and I'm going to say card preview none, which is immediately going to shrink the buttons. Then I'm also going to set the card size to small. And then I'm actually going to add a filter which says only show me entries where the review date is, you might have already guessed it, today. Boom. And then we get this button. Now we just have a simple button, and the moment we would click this button, we generate our new template, and it's automatically going to be in the right place. So we're going to take this button and add that to our execution zone, because this is where we do daily stuff. So daily review, we're going to add this to the execution zone. And I'm going to drag this one to the left because this is the first thing that we do when we start our working day. And now over here, we have a button. We need to change one more thing. I almost forgot this. We actually want to say that we open the pages as a full page. I'm actually going to change that in the original as well. Yep, database collection zone. Layout. I actually want to have that be full page. And so now whenever we start the day, we just press this button, boom, daily review is generated. Review date has already been automatically assigned. Over here, we can fill in the answers to the startup questions that we have. Right? Feeling great with this new template. Then we can check in all of the actions that have been scheduled for today. We can track any of the habits that we already completed in the morning. And if we want, we can check in with our daily affirmations. I am confident in my abilities to create templates, and I'm confident in my abilities to share them with all of you. Very beautiful. Then we would exit this template, which is no longer a template, it's now a page. And we would just do our daily actions. We would just, fuguzi vagazi around. And then at the end of the day, we open it again and we go into our shutdown routine. And then the first thing we do is we empty all of our actions, right? So we assign them to the corresponding projects. That way we empty our inbox. And then we can look at our scratch pad. Does this deserve any more attention? Does anything need to go into the action or into the knowledge inbox? Then we go one step further and we look at our actions and habits review. So over here we see, okay, these were all the actions that were planned for today. Did I actually manage to do all those actions? Did I miss something? We will schedule these actions for the day ahead, which I'm going to show you later on in this masterclass. And then we're going to track our shutdown habits. Were there any habits I was supposed to do during the day? And have I done those habits? And then the last thing that we end, over here you can now beautifully see this, is this daily tracking. And we already see the entry we made today because this filter only shows us daily reviews that have a date for today. And the template automatically set that date already. So just to show you that it is indeed the same page, this page over here is the same as this page over here. So over here, we can simply track those statistics, give myself a day rating, and then boom. Simple as that. That is how we use the daily review inside the Notion of Life system. Okay, so let's return back to this file. We did templates, we did layouts, we did automatic filters, database first principle. Like I said, currently we use some text blocks to structure certain parts of the daily review. At the end of this masterclass, everything in there is going to be a database view of another element. So it's going to be very scalable. It's going to be more intuitive. It's going to look prettier. It's going to have all the things in there. We did the synced blocks with our Scratchpad, designing for modularity, right? If you want to delete a part of this daily review, go for it. And yeah, I think this one is a good one to end this subchapter on. We don't work for the system, right? We've looked at this before, Principle 5. The system is working for us. We don't have to be perfect, right? Last year, I think I did around 200 daily reviews. Now, part of me is thinking, I only did 200 daily reviews. That means I missed over 160 daily reviews. But it also means I did 200 daily reviews. Even if we miss them half of the time, they are still very powerful. They still work. They can still help us become much more effective. So it is not about being perfect, but it's about having a system in place that we can fall back onto. And we have this daily review here. Maybe you miss it half the days. Maybe you don't use it in the weekend, but whenever you do use it, it is ready to go. And it helps you start your day and end your day with clarity and intent.